Chapter 39, Looking to the Capital. Yes. Fuji Zijing replied respectfully. He was unwilling to repeat the tragic end of that second steward some years ago, so he was extraordinarily respectful to this half-master in front of him. Fan Xian frowned, a trace of calmness that didn't match his age surfacing on his face, all without the usual expression of a teenager who heard that he was about to be married, and slowly said, "I'm curious as to who the other party is." He was 16 years old, and had long known that in this kind of powerful clan, marriage was definitely something that was brought up on the agenda, and since his father hadn't forgotten about his illegitimate son all these years, there would always be such a day. It was just that this time the timing was so urgent, making him a bit confused as to why this marriage would be so urgent. Tu Zijing replied, I am not sure. I just heard that that family lady is virtuous and has always been rumored to be good in the capital." His careful explanation, on the contrary, made Fan Xian suspicious, ask himself a bastard without identity, even if both parents secretly have unusually deep backgrounds, but think that no official family is willing to marry their daughters to themselves only right. Seeing his expression, Fuji Zijing finally opened his mouth and said, "It's just that. That young lady doesn't seem to be in very good health, and has recently suffered from an illness, so she's in a hurry." Fan Xian suddenly realized, the original himself is a rushing god thing. Now understand, cannot help but bitterly smile and shake his head. Fuji Zijing was looking at his expression with little care, and found that the young master actually did not get angry, nor did he look mournful, but instead, he somewhat did not return to his senses, and thought that he would soon be marrying a young lady who was going to die. Could it be that the young master actually did not get angry at all? Fan Xian didn't have anything to be angry about. He had watched this kind of clip too much in his previous life, and being angry wouldn't help to solve the problem. In his heart, on the contrary, he sympathized with the woman in Kyoto who was lingering on the couch and was forced to marry a man he had never seen before just because of her own poor health. As for himself, Fan Xian does not have that kind of small family depression. He is always a little chauvinistic spirit, that men and women, always the woman suffers, men take advantage of, since he is always going to be in the world to marry and have children, so, in case you pick a good woman, is not it a big profit? Anyway, first into the capital to say, escape marriage, this kind of thing, cannot be in a hurry. First look at it. Everything is waiting to see. Let's see if the girl is pretty. Cute? Lori not? Young master, why? Fujiko Q asked carefully. Why aren't you angry? Fan Xian looked at him with a smile and said softly, first, just because I'm going to Kyoto doesn't mean I'll accept this marriage. Second, if I accept this marriage, it must mean that I like that woman. Third, even if that woman is lingering in sickness, I will not feel that this matter is much of a humiliation. Fourth, you may not know, I am actually a very powerful doctor. Fujiko Kyo froze. These 4 reasons confused him a bit, especially the last one. The young master actually knew about medicine. But he still didn't think that the young master's marriage would take a leap from tragedy to comedy because of that. After all, that young lady's family was very uncomplicated, and how could the young master cure a disease that even the imperial physician couldn't cure? The carriage never stopped. Fuji Zijing went out and got into the first carriage, and Fan Xian was left alone in the carriage again. The journey was inevitably lonely. He lifted the curtain and let the wind blow on his face, squinting slightly, looking around at the green mountains and the stone road on the official highway. He felt like countless images that were being rewound. It was just like the images he saw in the carriage when he just came to this world 16 years ago. On a day at the end of April, the long grass along the roads outside Kyoto was removed early, and the flying warblers were scared away by the men and women who came and went to trek on the green. Only the 2 rows of green willows along the moat were swinging their graceful postures and examining the scholars and citizens outside the city who had come from all over the world in a reserved manner. A small caravan of 3 horse-drawn carriages traveled far over, lining up on the official road, waiting to enter the city. The curtain of the carriage lifted up, revealing a clean cheek full of sunny smiles. The man looked at the walls of Kyoto, looked at the surrounding people with peaceful faces, and inhaled deeply. So this is the flavor of Kyoto. This person was naturally Fan Xian, and after dozens of days of grueling journey, their group had finally arrived in Kyoto. Along the way, he was very curious to watch the world of Qinghua, which was strange mixed with a few strangers, finally satisfying his desire to travel, and he became much more familiar with the guards such as Tu Zijing. Fan Xian was a cute young man who was used to wearing a smile on his face, and such a person was always easy to make people feel good about. Fuji Zijing held his hand to let him down from the carriage. Landing his feet on the official road, Fan Xian slightly turned his ankles, deliberately letting the soles of his cloth shoes come into contact with the land for a little while longer, as if he wanted to experience the difference of the land in Kyoto. There were a few more people entering the capital, and the capital was tightly forbidden, so the line was a bit long. Fan Xian was a bit bored with waiting, pointing to the city wall in front of him and talking to Fuji Zijing without a word. He guessed that Sananbafu should not send someone to pick him up. After all, his identity is not very honorable. While he was chatting, suddenly the crowd at the back stirred slightly, and the crowd consciously made way for a very wide road. A group of cavalry rode over in silence, very fast, traveling towards the city gates without stopping for half a second. On the horse at the front of the group was a young girl wearing a light-colored jacket, and in this heavy spring weather, she was even wearing a hat made of white deerskin, looking very playful. This young girl's eyebrows like distant mountains, bright eyes, very beautiful. But she was sitting on a horse, but her expression was slightly anxious. It seems that she was in a hurry to return to the city. What must have happened? Fan Xian stood by the roadside, smiling at the fleet of horses that swept by, and sighed in admiration. There really are many beautiful people in the capital. He couldn't help but think of his own possible wife and wondered what she looked like. Fuji Zijing coughed softly from the side. Fan Xian thought to himself that he had only praised him and had not lost his temper, so why was he so nervous? Smiling, Fan Xian asked, "It seems that Kyoto's culture is not as closed as I had imagined. This girl is wearing a skirt, but she is still riding a horse, and no one has made some comments." Fuji Zijing explained with a bitter smile, "The one who just passed by is the only daughter of Kyoto's guardian, Mr. Yi, so who dares to talk about her going?" Fan Xian let out an "oh," and stood up on the carriage to look toward the city gates. Sure enough, when that group of cavalry arrived at the city gates, they didn't line up and just checked their tokens and went into the city. When it was Fan Xian's turn to enter the city, he deliberately looked at the expressions of the officials and soldiers at the city gates, and found that the other side should have a businesslike expression, and then looked back at his own carriage, and only then realized what was going on. The three carriages did not have the Fan family's markings on them, so it seemed that he had entered the capital without much fanfare this time.